Recorded live from the mats of Radical MMA in New York City. The Martial Culture Podcast. Your source for in-depth combat sports and martial arts insights with Coach Rene and Matt Peters. Ring the bell and let's get it on.
What up,
Hey.
buddy people? I'm trying out new stuff. Tell me if you like it or not. Rene, how are you?
Everything is great. How about you?
I'm fantastic. Another beautiful Monday in Manhattan.
It
Great
is
event over the
actually beautiful.
weekend.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
Fantastic event. We'll get into that soon.
It was unbelievable. And I'm conflicted about this last UFC. It was 241. And the headlining fight was Cormier and
You're
Stipe.
conflicted.
I'm conflicted.
What's wrong?
I'm like a vegetarian who likes meat.
They're all like me. They just don't admit it. That's
Actually, I had this funny
stance,
thing.
right?
It's just, the reason I said that is because there's this thing called a conflicted burger. It's a like a veggie patty and a beef patty together. I had it. I'm like, this is actually really delicious.
Huh. Like one of those like Morningstar patties or something like that?
No,
Or
it
is
was
that one
actually
of,
much better. It was, but yeah, it was that kind of idea. But
Yeah.
it was really well made, and it didn't taste grainy or anything. But it did have a kind of interesting consistency. Two together were pretty good, but I guess it defeats the purpose. Though
Well,
I
you
had
saved
the,
one cow.
Did you ever have the Impossible?
I haven't, but it sounds like really good.
It is excellent, and
Dunkin' Donuts has the Impossible
right, and Burger King is doing it.
sausage sandwich.
Yeah, and Burger King is doing it, and I haven't been to Burger King, but there's a place right near my academy, and I do try to cut down my red meat intake.
Meatless Monday.
Meat is that a thing? Meatless
Yeah,
Monday?
I think
Oh.
Beyonce started it.
I
really
have
do
no
think she
idea.
Well, she popularized it.
Well, that's great, but and you know, for health reasons, a little less red meat is good, but also environmental reasons. You know, obviously the greenhouse emissions from
Get off
cattle
your
and such.
soapbox. Just kidding. But it is delicious, though.
Yeah.
It's good.
So I went to this burger place around me, and it's interesting because it tastes exactly like, not exactly, but incredibly similar to a burger. And the reason I did it is also I don't feel heavy afterwards. So in the afternoon, if I eat this, I can actually train. If I eat a burger, I have like an hour where I'm kind of like, you know, I have to sit on a chair and just be bloated. but I eat this and I'm like, oh, it's not a heavy meal for me at all.
Let's do a blind taste test next week. I'll get an Impossible Whopper.
You should totally do that. We should totally do that.
Burger, yeah.
You know, we never did the PlayStation where the video game thing.
We should do that, too. We got so many things we should do.
I know.
I
want to. You know what? That's the thing, Matt. If we play video games, you will destroy me.
Yeah?
Yeah, I am not.
I do practice a lot.
I have not played video games since I was a kid.
This is complicated. The UFC 3 on PlayStation, it's a complicated game. Like, it's not just button mashing. You can actually do, like, submissions and things.
That's cool. One of my students just told me there's a virtual reality place on 32nd Street, and there's like a boxing one. But you put the goggles on, you fight a guy, and it looks like he's really in front of you. And I'm like, how realistic? He's like, it's not really realistic, like fighting another person, but it's as close as he's ever felt. And I'm like, I always thought this, like virtual reality would be a great training tool. It was one of the horrible things about striking, and this is I want to talk about this UFC, is that obviously you get brain damage. So in the fights, it's not as much brain trauma as training, but of course they can happen in fights as well. But in training, you just get hit over and over again. It's something in the academy we're very careful with. But imagine if you could put on a virtual reality suit and just spar with an invisible partner, and maybe you feel just a little buzzed, like you got tagged.
They got to be close.
Yeah, I think that'd be an
The
amazing
military's
training.
doing it right now with aliens at Area 51.
Well, the military's been doing it all the time with you know, flight simulators.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean
Same
that's
thing.
like the same thing. I don't know about aliens, but flight simulators. Yeah. Are you going to
Truth is
be
out there.
hitting Area 51 in that?
Yeah, I'm
thing?
going out there next weekend. Just catch up with some friends. Just meet me there. Meet me at the fence.
There is no fence in Area 51. Did you know that?
No.
There's actually no fence.
They're just that confident. There's mines in the ground, but no fence.
Lasers.
Come on. UFC 241 was a slobber knocker. A lot of decisions. At least a couple big decisions, but some big knockouts as well.
Unreal. And you know what? I was watching it, and I felt conflicted like that burger. Because of course I'm a fan of MMA as it relates to developing my technique and things like that. But watching people just get the pus beat out of them.
Yeah, it didn't seem very technical.
I mean, it was a night of sheer unrelenting brutality. And at some point I'm like, whoa, like, whew, you know, sometimes this is like I know what happens when you get hit that hard. And I was like, whoa, this is just.
Did you hear Nate Diaz in the
no, what did he
post
say?
fight? I mean, just the way he sounded.
Oh, no.
Sounded like he got punched.
Did you see the picture that he posted? So, you know, a few years ago, Anthony Pettis was on the cover. A few years ago, it was a long time ago now, but he was on the cover of the Wheaties box. So this Sunday morning, he was eating Wheaties with the box, and he has the box and he's eating Wheaties. Because I was like, wow, that's, you know, in terms of trash talking, that's the best.
Highbrow.
That's highbrow right there.
He thought about that one.
Yeah, he probably went look for that box a long time.
He had it. He purchased it on Friday. He's ready to go.
Ready to go.
He's ready for that.
But you know, I wasn't sure if he's going to win just due to inactivity, but I did believe he's a better fighter. Did you see the Pettis fight?
Yeah.
Yeah. What'd you think?
I thought it was amazing that, I mean, obviously he was out of the game for 3 years. He hasn't fought in 3 years. So you assume there's going to be some
rust.
And there was a little bit, like it took him a little bit to kind of warm up, I thought.
Yeah.
But he did warm up quicker than I expected. And I did.
He's always been a little bit of a slow starter, right? Yeah, right. No,
that's what I
kind of always thought.
I just felt like maybe it was a little longer than usual.
Yeah, probably. I always mix up. This is terrible. I always mix up Nate and Nick Diaz.
I do too.
I like, to me, they're just one person because their fighting styles are like really similar, and sometimes I can't remember which one is which.
What about Pettis' brother? They're
no,
like
no, but he's
so
other, but the other one's so much better. Yeah, the other one.
But they just look exactly like they have the same tattoos. Like, guys, come on,
I know. It's
like
couldn't you do a better job on your tattoo?
Copy, like it copied each other. It's weird.
There's like he's a candidate for the world's worst tattoo.
There's a chance that Pettis listens to our podcast.
I'm sorry, Mr. Pettis. It's your mom. I know.
He has liked our Instagram posts every now and then.
Oh, I'm sorry. You know, it's wonderful that you have your family on your chest, but maybe you should change tattoo artists.
He's from New Jersey, or at least he trains in New Jersey.
No. He's Milwaukee.
Oh,
yeah. He's and the Pettis are part of the Duke Rufus team, Rufus Sport. And Rufus is one of those old teams that goes way back. And he was originally an American kickboxer, but he's a very, very famous match against a Thai boxer where he ate low kick after low kick and just got destroyed. So they switched over to Thai boxing, one of the first gyms to go from American kickboxing to Thai boxing. And have produced a lot of fighters, and they've been in the MMA game for a while. And yeah, Pettis is the Pettis brothers, and who was from that camp? I forgot. That was really big way back when. They had a few guys, and I know Tyrone Woodley drops in there. Ben Askren drops in there. They're all in that Milwaukee area. But he had another fighter from that way back when. He'd been in MMA. But yeah, his most highest profile fights are the Pettis brothers.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I was watching the embeddeds, and they were following Diaz, and I thought he was looking obviously very good in the promo stuff. I
usually like to watch the embeddeds. This one I missed every single one of them. Yeah. I was just doing stuff, and I missed it. But it's nice to see that he's back, and the pace. You know, it's always that Diaz brothers. They don't punch hard, but he just never stops pitter-patter.
Yeah, he was unrelentless.
Yeah,
it was crazy.
And you know, it's funny because I've been on the receiving end of that, and like especially on the bottom, like you're in like a couple times this was a while ago. I was in half guard, and this was training. There's not a fight, but I was in training, and my opponent, of course, is my friend. He's not hitting me hard, but they're like he's in your bottom half guard, so I'm underneath him, and he's like bunk. Bunk, bunk. And the first three, you're like, oh, it's just paps. And after the 15th, you're like, wait, this is getting bad. And then you 20, you're like, whoa, this is really affecting me. And then you're like, wow, this is bad. And they're not hard. And he's not, you know, this is like consistent pace. And Diaz has some things in striking the Diaz brothers have that I like what to do. There's some things I don't like what to do. But I love that pace, that just nonstop boom, 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 boom. When I was always training in judo, and of course, it's different martial art, but it's the same thing. And I applied it to my striking. My judo instructor used to say, count to 3. 1, 2, 3. Make sure you're either continuing your attack on 2 or 3. Don't stop attacking, right? The guy who's leading the dance is always going to win, or not always, but has a much more chance of winning. So it's like 1, 2, 3 attack, 1, 2, 3 attack, 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2 attack, 1, 2, 1, 2. Keep the pace going. Make sure you can, and of course that takes a lot of cardio. But that you're an athlete, you're a fighter. You have to make sure that you're ready to do that. And I applied that to my striking, and I can tell you in all my fights, when I successfully applied that formula, I never gave up the initiative. And initiative is a very powerful weapon, whether it's in self-defense or MMA or even any combat sport, regardless. Like even a combat sport with limited street effectiveness. You know that if you control the initiative, you'll have a tremendous advantage. That's a universal rule of combat. Yeah. And so, but he was always pushing the pace. The one
couldn't
thing,
get off the fence.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And the one thing I noticed is Pettis' jiu-jitsu really made a lot of mistakes. I was like, he gave up his back so many times, and I see this a lot. And I'm very, Rickson Gracie, very famous jiu-jitsu guy, probably one of the best to ever live, doesn't like watching MMA anymore. And he's like, I don't like to watch it because I just don't feel it's that technical. And he's right and he's wrong, because there's some very technical moments in the Pettis fight, right? But then you also see these like day one beginner mistakes. Like, why did you do that? And it's like, I'm wondering, like, why did he escape that way? It's one, you think you can attribute your way out. And I had a conversation with one of my fighters today, and I said, don't attribute your way out. Get out technically. That's one. So sometimes when you're a really top athlete, you can use those athletics to overcome someone's technique. And over time, you get it until you meet that guy who is just like, his technique is flawed. It's like, there's no gap. I call it being a white belt killer. So you're like, oh, I can athlete out of a white belt. Oh, maybe I can athlete out of a blue belt. I can athlete out of a purple belt. Oh, shoot, this guy's a brown belt. What the hell just happened? Oh, this guy's a really good black belt. What the hell just happened? Now I'm dead. So it's either that or, and I want to talk about this a little bit later, like a lot of guys in sport jiu-jitsu are going to turtle. They're giving up their back. But because they don't, like the way it works in sport jiu-jitsu, I know you don't do sport jiu-jitsu, but like if you go past the legs, you pass the guard, you get points. So you cannot let the guy set in the pass. So what they do is they roll over and they give up their back. And then when the guy tries to take their back, they just bunch up in a position we call turtle, elbows to knees on there. And then they kind of just like stay there, and then they try to recover guard again. The problem with that is you get punched in the face. You get punched in the face a lot. There's like in old days of jiu-jitsu, you should never do that. Never, ever, ever, never roll up and give turtle. And I've heard people coaching other people to do that in tournaments. Now, when I don't really go to tournaments anymore, but I see the video of my fighters, and you can see what the other coach is calling out. And my fighter, he mostly does the cornering in the sport jiu-jitsu tournaments because I have to teach at the academy. But I watch the video, and you hear the opponent's corner saying, "Go to turtle." I'm like, wow! If this were a fight, you're telling him to do something incredibly wrong, and it's happened like 50, 60, 60 times. And I don't know, 50, 60, but a lot. And it happened with Pettis, and he just kept doing things that were really, really risky. Sometimes it worked, but it exposed him to that punch and punch and punch. And I was just disappointed. I felt that really, when he went to turtle, it really wore him down. And then when he got up, he was carrying Diaz's weight, and he was really got tired, and he just couldn't get his game on.
Disappointing.
Yeah, it was. I didn't say I was rooting for one or the other, but I like to see a really technical match. And they definitely had their moments, and they're great. Both of them are great fighters, but there was some significant mistakes there. And then because of that, I felt Pettis was sluggish standing up. Because when you escape incorrectly, you have to use a lot of attributes. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not easy. You have to, attributes mean, like, you got to put up the gas. So then he got up, and he was more sluggish. And Diaz was like, I'm not tired. Let's keep going. Back up.
Yeah, and he kept going.
And he just would not let Pettis get his range. And, Diaz is just like, not let him get off the cage, not let him get his range. Pitter-patter, 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 pitter-patter.
I think it was unanimous, right?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
All right.
What are the other fights?
Who's next? Who do you think Diaz has next? Because he called out Masvidal.
Yeah, actually, and that was actually a really cool call out, because he's like, I really respect him. He's, like, usually the Diaz brothers are kind of like, like a little bit less polished.
Yeah. Well, I think he said I want to fight the fucking best.
Yeah. And he said something like, I remember he was like, oh, he's really good. He's the man. And like he said something like very complimentary to him. Mm-hmm. That's really cool.
Well, doesn't McGregor make more sense, at least financially?
Well, I don't even know if McGregor is going to have some problems now. He got in that street fight.
Yeah.
Why are you punching an old man? I don't
Why does he do
it.
anything? He wants attention.
Somebody's
looking at somebody else.
For our listeners who don't know that, do you know the story? The old man would not. Yeah, so they're at a bar, and I think Conor McGregor's drunk, and he's pouring his whiskey that he makes, and the old man refused the whiskey, like he's treating everybody, right? And the old man's like, "No, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I don't need to drink your whiskey." And the guy's like, and Connor's like, "No, you must drink my whiskey." And then he punched him in the face. You punched an old man in the face. You are a disgusting human being. And I've always hated Conor McGregor. And I hate him even more now. I how could you punch an old dude in the face? But the funny thing was, the old dude took it and was like, "Is that all you got?" I'm like, "Oh, old Irish dude."
So we'll probably see him fight Masvidal before McGregor, given his legal ramifications.
But let's go back a little bit on the card. Did you get to see the Sadiq Benitez fight?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so this was it was pretty cool. I turned away to grab some guacamole, and I'm like, "Oh my god, the fight's over!" and it was like the Benitez just clocked this kid Sadiq. This kid Sadiq Yusuf he has won. He's like one of those guys up and coming. He has some polishing to do, but he will be up there. This kid is tough. And this was his first real test because a lot of times he out-techniques the guy or this or that. This one, he got clocked really bad. And after the fight, his eyes all swollen up and all totally messed up. It looks like, somebody took a barbell and hit him with it. But so he almost went unconscious. But he comes back and goes, "Gaganka," and knocks the guy out. I'm like, whoa. This kid, I had to see it on the replay because I actually was literally turning to get some guacamole. And I'm like, whoa, because I said, "Oh, this fight's over." And then like a few seconds later, he just knocks the guy out. Wow. And one punch, major power. And that was one where it was like, it wasn't even technique. Like I said, this night was a night of just sheer brutality. And then the next one, did you see the Enrique Costa Yoel Romero fight?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Do you think that was called right? That was
yes.
Some people were saying
yes.
Not sure.
Yeah, because okay, so that's it. So Romero and these guys are just trading. For the guys who didn't see it, they're trading back and forth, and it reminded me of the old school Vanderlei Silva Pride fights where it was like, or the old school, not even just Vanderlei, but people standing in front of each other just hitting each other all the time. And definitely there was technique there. There was for sure. But and
where
Costa had more technique. Like he had hit some nice moves. I mean, and let me tell you, Romero's slipping and bobbing and weaving of the punch. There was a lot of he was really evasive. It's not really right. It's not like he, like I said this in our other podcast a long time ago. What is up with Romero? It's not like I think he's training that. He's just one of these natural, incredible panther-like human beings. Of course, somewhat chemically enhanced, but to this extent, he's a 1%er who is just an absolute athlete, combat athlete. And he just knows not to be, he's like, "I don't want to be in that fist. I'm going to move here." But his evasive ability was phenomenal. And he had more head strikes, but towards the fight, he kept hitting him, but it was like dish rag head strikes. So he actually had more significant head strikes. It was like 57 to 30 something. And then Bob Silva had many more body shots. So it was like 17 to 43. But if you actually, towards the end, the power of Romero was really waning in those body shots and the head shots. Mm-hmm. He actually did this. He did a jab and then he does this like weird back fist thing he does, which is like no power. So I don't think he was scoring too much. But I was sitting next to someone and they felt Romero won. I was like, Costa won. But it was definitely a tight fight and it was just crazy back.
If they went 2 more rounds, who do you think would have won? Was Romero gassing out?
Yeah, he couldn't have done. I think he was fading. Yeah. He was fading. But he definitely in that last round he was really pushing. So it wasn't like he was done at that last round. They were in it, fighting in it. And the thing, Costa was tired too. He was dropping his heads. But the thing is, this is the problem. He didn't feel Romero's power. So he was dropping his hands, and I was watching with Gilson. Gilson's like, "Dude, you can't." And his corner said, "Keep your hands up," right? But he's like, Costa was like, "I don't feel this guy's power, so I don't care if he hits me." But the thing is, the judges see that too. Yeah. So he could have easily lost the fight, but he's like, "Oh, you're hitting me, but you're doing nothing,"
right?
Because you could see that Romero's power was was waning. That he revs up and then revs down, and he revs up and revs down. He's the opposite of Diaz. Diaz is just consistently boom, 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 but Romero just comes at you like a hurricane, and then he has to have this time to like recover. Mm-hmm. It's very much like a street fight. You know, like I always said in the last the podcast we talked about him was like 13 or 14. So it was like last year. Mm-hmm. You know, he's like this like street fighter, like just, and then he's like, and then he has to like recharge. He's like a video game or something. You know, the energy life has to replenish, and then he comes at you again.
Right.
But Costa forced him to play a more like marathon pace, and I didn't see it.
Yeah, Costa pushed it.
Pushed it. Oh my God.
Like consistent.
Yeah. He always was charging him and coming forward and never let him rest. And I think that's the key to defeating Romero. As long as you have good defense. I think Costa had to have his hands up a little higher. And I don't think he kind of reminds me of Anthony Smith, where it's like I think he'll be kind of this like perennial challenger, but I don't see him at this point being a guy. Yeah, I don't know. Costa. I don't think he's going to be the guy to take the title, but he'll be a serious threat. You know, always.
Yeah, speaking of that, I mean, is he a threat to Adesanya at all?
That's what, you know, it's an interesting fight. I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think, but it's an interesting fight. Who knows? You know, but I don't think so. I don't think so, you know, but anything can happen. I feel Adesanya is way too technical. And while he doesn't have like that crazy knockout power, he can volume you with significantly more power than over time than say someone like Romero. Smart and very smart fighter, and very evasive. And I think if they fought, Adesanya would find a way to outpoint him.
I think so too.
Yeah, just too evasive.
So speaking of somebody that took some hits and took him for granted, we'll move on to DC, who after the fight was over, he said, Stipe was hitting me, but it didn't hurt, so I didn't take him seriously. And then it was too late. Yeah,
I could totally see that.
Yeah.
I really thought Stipe was going to win, and I said to my student, I said I think it'd be either a decision or a stoppage in the fourth, because
really
Stipe does not have like crazy like kill knockout power. Right. He has to play like even Ngannou, like he was hitting Ngannou a lot. I mean, Stipe is one of those matches where he's like one of the guys who has the most strikes in one fight.
Yeah, I think they set a record on this fight, actually.
This fight too, right? Yeah, but he has one before that too, where he's hitting a lot. So he's not like, for a heavyweight, he doesn't punch that hard. No. I mean, obviously he punches hard, but
relative,
yeah, right. But he has to hit you a few times. He can't be like, my fist on your face.
Yeah, and he's great with combinations.
Yeah,
like the combination where he knocked him out was a great combination.
Which is why in the first round, he was so bad.
Yeah.
Like I said it was going to be a fourth round thing, but in the first round, I'm like, what the hell are you doing? This is not what you want to do. First of all, he wasn't throwing any combinations, basically a 1-2 maybe. And then he was like kind of clunky and letting DC do whatever the hell he wanted.
Yeah.
And you know, sometimes coming back from a loss to the guy, you face him again, you go through these mental moments of crap. And you're like, your unconscious body, like, I remember the pain that this person gave me. So he's kind of like, that's happened to me. Like, yeah. You're like, oh, I remember what this guy did to me the last time. And it's unconscious, totally unconscious. But your body's like, no, let's move it. Let's go away. Let's go back to Popeyes. Oh no, that's the wrong fighter.
But he was taking a lot of shots. Like he was jabbing. DC was jabbing him. Like every now and then, would just zap it in.
Yeah. No, the first round, DC just crushed him.
I got worried. I definitely got worried. At the end of round 2, I was like, oh, come on.
I had a very big bet with one of my students on this one.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, oh, man, I'm going to lose. And it was not for money. It was a joke bet where he's shaved head and he's kind of shiny. So I tease him that he looks like Megamind, the cartoon character. And the bet was he had to wear a T-shirt of the Megamind character for a week. And if I lost, I had to do yoga with my wife for a week. Which doesn't sound like punishment, but anyway, I will not say anymore. I'll get in trouble. But
did you do hot yoga at least? So it's really uncomfortable.
No, it's just regular yoga. But no, she's actually amazing. But I don't. Anyway,
so your student has to wear the Megamind shirt.
It's pretty cool.
You have a Megamind shirt?
I bought it.
You bought it? Did you taunt them while the fight's going on? You're a big taunter.
I did that. Not in the first round. In the first round, I was like, shit. I was like, damn it.
At the beginning of the fourth round, you're like, man.
You know, I saw it at the third round. He started getting his rhythm. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, this is where he's going to put it on. And then fourth round was what he should have done in the first round, is keep range and dig to the body and dig to the body, dig to the face, and throw combinations. And the thing with body shots is, especially he was hitting him. It was on this side, so it was
The right side.
yeah, it was more a kidney shot than a liver shot. Let me see. It's more. Yeah, no, I guess it would be it was a liver shot, right? No, it was a liver shot. So, which side did he hit him on? But yeah, it was more a liver shot. So, liver and kidneys. Sometimes you hit them, they'll just drop you right away. But over time, if you're not quite with the precision, you're like, oh, that kind of hurt, but it's not the big deal. And then stops functioning. You're like, you just can't function as well. And then you're like, oh, and then it really hits. So I've had some times where you got in a liver shot and that's it. You're done. You're done immediately. But sometimes it's like, it's the cumulative approach and it hits you about a minute later and you're like, oh God. And everything just spasms up. And then you can't, it's not that DC isn't a great fighter. When you have that liver and kidney shot kind of spasm, what are you going to do? Yeah. It's part of fighting.
Yeah, I heard somebody say that whoever told Stipe to start hitting the body won that fight.
Yeah.
And give that guy a steak dinner.
Yeah, right. No, exactly.
Yeah.
But also movement combinations and keeping at distance. Not just wake up. And Stipe is absolutely, I've always said it, Stipe was the better boxer. In the first round, he didn't show it. And you know what the thing is? Daniel Cormier really did improve. He improved. He didn't do some of that stupid movement that he does. He really actually looks sharper in striking than I've seen him look before. And his jab improved a lot. There was a lot of improvement going on there. And he's, I always felt that he was lackluster in striking, in regular normative kickboxing. So I'm talking about in his dirty boxing. He's phenomenal. His like clinch, kind of dirty boxing is very, very good. But I'm talking like outside boxing. But this is where he looked good. But I always felt Stipe was just much better. This is much better. But he did the first round he didn't show it, and the second round, and the third round Stipe woke up, and then it was on.
Yeah.
And that's even if you look back to the last fight, I really felt Stipe was winning it. Thing is, Stipe's got to keep his hands up. That guy, he's like, for the heavyweight, you got to keep your hands up. He has no problem taking he's like an old school tough guy.
Yeah, he took a lot of hits and kept going.
Took a lot of hits. Wow, it was not the sustainable way to fight.
What did you think about DC picking him up?
That was great. That's his bread and butter.
Yeah.
And he should have kept him down and just,
Well, yeah, he should have stayed on the ground.
Yeah, and he should have done that more. I remember the first time I saw DC, it was way back before he was in the UFC, it was Strike Force. Strike Force, one of those other shows. Maybe it was not, I think it was Strike Force, yeah. And he picked up, what's his name? The War Master, Josh Barnett.
Okay.
And I've never seen anyone juggle Josh Barnett. I mean, it was like he was juggling him,
Yeah.
And when he hit, he just boom. And that's what DC does best. I mean, you're talking about a guy who won bronze at the World Championships and was in
just bronze. Come on, guy.
I know, only bronze. What are you gonna do? Yeah, what a loser.
Stipe, I think he cut a lot. Like he was really thin, or not thin, but he was small.
He leaned out.
He was 230. He weighed in at 230.
He leaned out a lot. I think he was looking to be faster, but I think it could have been. It's a great point. It could have been that maybe what he did diet wise just didn't work for him, and he had took him time to start up again. The nutrition can play a huge role in your performance, huge role. So that's a great point.
I think DC was actually 265, like right on the button.
Jeez,
which was probably difficult for him to get to.
No, he's always gotten bigger. Like he's not going back. He's not going back to 205.
No. Well, what does he do next? I mean, I don't think he's going to retire. Obviously, since he lost, he's not going to go out. Did you see John Jones?
No. What did he do?
So he was. John Jones did a video of DC being interviewed by Joe Rogan at the end, and you hear somebody in the background going like, "Is he going to cry?" And then John Jones says, "I think he's going to probably hold it together, but he'll be crying in the car on the way home."
Oh, that's so bad.
Poor DC.
Oh my God, that's so bad.
But then somebody asked Stipe if he would fight John Jones.
Do you mean he go down or John Jones go up?
I don't think Stipe can go down. He's a beast. He's 6'5". Going down to 205 would be
well. If
difficult.
he weighed in at 230, you could probably do it. But yeah, he shouldn't. He should not.
No.
Yeah.
And I think Jones could go up to.
Yeah.
He was talking about going up.
Last I heard, The last I heard, and it was a while ago, but that he was going to stay at 205 for a while. But then, there was some scuttlebutt that he might.
I think he wants to be have two belts, and I don't think he's going below light heavyweight.
No.
So I think he'd have to go up.
Though he would do very well at 185 if he could manage the weight.
I don't see anybody else in the heavyweight division that's a challenge, really.
No, there's a lot of guys coming up who are pretty serious. I think
Derek Lewis.
Yeah, Derek Lewis.
If he can figure out his conditioning, maybe.
Yeah. And then, but there are a few guys there that there's shoot, it's not coming to mind. But there's some. Of course, Ngannou again. He's still in the mix.
Yeah.
And
are we calling? Is it too early to call Stipe the best heavyweight in the UFC of all time to date? He's got the most defenses.
Yeah. No, he's up there for sure. He definitely is up there. Mm-hmm. I respect him a lot. I was thinking though, this is interesting. I was thinking back to Fedor, but he was not in the UFC, and of course he looks terrible now because he's way too old.
Is he still fighting in Bellator?
Yeah, I think so. But if Prime Stipe fought Prime Fedor, I would actually give it to Fedor.
I would too.
Yeah, right. And I'm not like a huge Fedor fan. I actually think there's a lot of problems with what he did, but it's funny because there has been and this card kind of shows it, that sometimes there's some really technical guys, and but I think we're at a point in the UFC where 155 and up, not 170 and above, is not as technical as it used to be. There's some great guys, like Adesanya is obviously phenomenal. I'm just talking the weight classes as in mass, like the bench, not just the champion, but they're not quite as filled with the just the technicians that they used to be. I remember, you had GSP, you had Anderson Silva, you had and then you had other people who were underneath them, like you had Rory McDonald when his prime. You had a lot of guys who were very, very skilled all at the same time. And I'm not just talking the champions. You had Bisping, who I don't like, but he's definitely a very skilled fighter. Shogun, there's like a lot of guys in that thing, and now we see it. It's a cyclical thing. It's sad to see because honestly, I was watching this UFC and I'm like, probably lay people love this.
I loved it.
Right. And then from a technician standpoint,
right,
I was like,
this is why our friend Chris Romulo doesn't watch.
Right.
UFC.
No, but then if you go down to 145 or 135 or some of the women's matches or 125, like watching some of those fighters is just unreal how good they are. But you also see I think it's a nature of two things. One, we're in a cycle of this happens. As some people retire, some people get cut, and they have to replenish. It's the nature of every sport. You go through times where the team is on top, and then it goes down a little bit, and then it comes back or something like that. But and that's true for every sport. There's a cyclical nature. But the other thing is, I think we are at a point where there's so many fights and so much saturation. There's more demand for fighters. And there's less time to prepare them to be technical, particularly at the heavyweights, because they're like, look at how much they rushed Ngannou. Ngannou was like, stock boy at, I don't know, some store. And then a year later, he's in the UFC. It's crazy. It's not that quick, but really tremendous. Now, of course, he's a great athlete, stuff like that, but they definitely rushed him. And he needed more seasoning when he was fighting that title. And obviously mentally as well as technically, he just needed more seasoning. And you don't have you see mistakes. And the same thing, like I said, with the Pettis fight, you're like, wow, this is a lot of mistakes that he shouldn't be making. And of course, Pettis is very technical, don't get me wrong, but he made a lot of mistakes. And I think it's like, okay, rush people to fight. And you can see this on the amateur level. I actually had a discussion with someone who came to my gym, and I'm like, he's like, I want to fight, really good kid. And he, good kid, great kid. But he's like, I want to fight really soon. And I'm like, you can't fight for a while. And the funny thing is, he had a fight scheduled with a promoter here in New York. The promoter knows nothing about him. He's like, how long you train? 9 months. Boom. Okay, I'll put you in a ring. Because the promoters have no interest in keeping you safe other than that you don't die in the ring. Yeah. After your brain
that looks bad.
Right, it looks bad. Other than that, they're okay. Right. Especially at amateur level, when they stop it early, you're generally okay. But you never know. But their goal is to entertain people and put butts in the seats, and they don't care about fighters, and they don't care about technique because most people don't care about technique. That's unfortunate. So you see a lot of people coming into MMA who have no business. I'm Facebook friends with this one person, and I will not say name or gender or anything like that. The person visited my academy once and trained, and I showed that person some things. Very nice person. But then I'm Facebook friends, and I see this person was in an MMA fight. I'm like, what? How utterly irresponsible. This person was nowhere near ready and could have been incredibly seriously hurt. Not only was there sheer lack of preparation in all elements of fighting, whether it was striking, wrestling, or ground fighting, but it was also just that individual, that athlete, was not a high level athlete and not coordinated enough to really stand in the ring and defend the oneself. Whoever that person's coach was is one of the most irresponsible people I've ever seen, and it's from a well-known gym. So I'm like, people are just, and also people have this dream, like, you know, they come into my academy too, and they're like, oh, I want to fight MMA because they have these they have these goals to like brag on Instagram or some bull crap like that. I don't even know. But, you know, they want to have some external, like, yeah, I'm a fighter, you know, some kind of validation or something. So they want to get in, and me telling them that you're not ready, like, burst their dream. Or they'll just go somewhere else, and then they'll probably get in a fight. And so we're at a point where, whether it's the highest level, the medium level, or even the amateur level, you see a flood of bodies, and they're not as technical in terms of the whole bench as they used to be. That being said, the highest level guys are some of the most technical guys around that have ever lived. You know, and Stipe is, you're right, he has the most title defenses, and he's pinpoint accuracy in his boxing and his takedowns and his, his control, his body control of another is fantastic. You know, Adesanya is just a master. The minute he stepped into the octagon, I'm like, this guy's going to be a champ someday. Whitaker too. Whitaker is, he fought very great fighter. Or he's going to fight. I'm sorry. Also Kevin Gastelum. These are really good fighters. So, but then you look at the rest of the bench, you're like, maybe not 185, but you know what I'm saying, right? Like, it's not like where you had this lineup. Even when John Jones first came, it was John Jones, and you had Rashad, and you had that wrestler dude who had the Wonder Bar, Mr. Wonder, Phil Davis. You had this really big bench of guys, and you're like, whoa, like, who's he gonna fight next? He can fight this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. And I think 145, 155 are like that. Right now, and some of the ones, even 135, there's like big, really technical guys. But when you get over 170, they have to get people more technical, and that's why I think the UFC Performance Institute is a really good idea. They get them moving better, and then in Asia. And I think another place too, they're developing not just a technical institute, but a training institute where they're actually going to train fighters from countries that, like India or where China, the ones in China now, but where they're not as good as MMA. So they're going to make them much better. I think that's great. You know, fantastic. So it's a more technical product. And ONE FC does the same thing. I mean, the fighters, ONE FC is not at the same level as the UFC, but all of their fighters, like, their benches are filled with technical guys for that AAA league class. They have some very, very technical guys, and women too, but it's not the level of that we expect from the UFC. It's the AAA level.
Has the internet ruined MMA? The shareable clips and the sound bites of, you want to be the guy on the top, and you want to be the Conor McGregors, you want to be the guy on the news with the 1 minute clip of you punching an old man in a bar. So you're getting attention. You
know what? That's a great question, because MMA would not exist if it weren't for the modern technology. First, we were trading VCRs and videotapes, and then we were looking at streaming videos and things. So the modern technology has fueled both jiu-jitsu and modern MMA, and they're not inseparable. I mean, look, it's UFC Fight Pass. We're watching so many things from that. So all this modern technology has fueled it, but at the same time, the shallow nature of social media has brought out I think in every part of our culture has brought out something that is not positive and is against the kind of martial art values and things like that. And sometimes, the hype really sells. That being said, it's no different from 100 years ago, because 100 years ago you had catch-as-catch-can wrestling or something like that, or boxing. And I think fight sports bring out the best of humanity and the worst. And that's just what fight sports do. It's maybe a little bit more in your face now because of the Hackenschmidt-Gotch, 1918 catch-as-catch-can wrestling title. I'm sure there was, and I heard it's like a tremendous racial element to this and that. And there's elements of it that where you look at, no, this is not really something that is positive for society. But then you look at how these two amazing athletes fought each other, or, the famous one where the Hitler boxer, the boxer the Hitler supporter who wasn't a Nazi fought, was it Joe Louis or something? I forgot. There's a black boxer. Right. Yeah. There's all this racial element behind it. Mm-hmm. But that guy wasn't a racist. It's, what's his name? The one I'm talking about.
I know the fight, but I can't.
Yeah.
Hans Gruber, I think his
Gruber.
name.
He's dead now, unfortunately, the actor.
Now you just ruined everybody's day.
Oh, that's Max Schmeling right? Max Schmeling.
Sounds right.
Yeah, Max Schmeling and Joe Louis, right? Wasn't it? Yeah.
Should we look it up?
Yeah, I think so. But anyway, we'll figure it out. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was it. It was Max Schmeling, and then yeah, right? It's Max Schmeling, right? Yeah. So there was an element of really ugly racial politics and things like that. But at the same time, these are two fantastic athletes
Max Schmeling.
And who did he fight? Joe Louis, right?
Joe Louis, yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, this is a famous one, and
he fought him twice.
Yeah, and then and Joe Louis fought him in the Olympics or something and beat him there or something, whatever. But
so there's always been some sort of show.
Yeah, there's always
it's a show.
It's a show, right.
But what's the where do we make the shift back from a show? If it's a cyclical nature of going up and down with technical versus
right.
Just the show.
This was actually pretty cool because I think some fighters like Demetrius Johnson, who that's one reason why I went over to ONE FC, they've just decided that they're going to represent themselves in a better way. GSP was like that. I think Adesanya is like that too. That he's not really trash talking in a disrespectful way. He's says things that sometimes can be construed as a little cocky, but you're not a little bit cocky as a fighter. You're probably in the wrong business. You have to believe in yourself a little too much, right? And there are ways to market yourself that, and I think the girls do it really well. Very often the girls are like, wow, she's such a great fighter. It's an honor fighter. We're going to have this great war. It's going to be amazing. It's not like, it's a different way to sell the fight. I think, and look, GSP was one of the most popular fighters ever to grace the octagon. Still is. And he never trash talked at all. He's like, well, I think I will do this, and then I'll do this, and then I will tap him out. That was my GSP impersonation.
That was pretty good.
Oh, thank you. It sounded more like Brazilian, but I don't know. It's dead terrible, but whatever. But, And I have no answer for this. I don't know.
Is there a tipping point? Is there like where somebody like Conor McGregor actually shoots a guy in the ring? Is that the end of it? Do we go back down from there? Like what's
Thunderdome chainsaws?
We need Tina Turner, and then we'll be good to go.
Yeah, let's not have Ike Turner too. Oh, that's terrible. Terrible joke. That was awful.
Yeah,
that was an awful joke.
Well, right. It wasn't a pun.
It was not. No, but it had to do with violence and being bad. But this is the thing. It's like, look at professional wrestling, and professional wrestling used to be real. For the people who don't know, it was actually 100% real. It was a wrestling competition. It was a submission wrestling competition, and they went so far into the hype machine that they stopped doing real fights. And MMA flirted with this a little bit with Elite XC. That was not the UFC, but the Elite XC, they did not have fake fights, but they match made in ways that would protect their golden children. One of them was Kimbo, the other was Gina Carano, right? And Kimbo was being like, marketed as the the world's best fighter when he was like a C level, D level MMA fighter.
I liked his YouTube video.
Oh my God, but he was a C or D level MMA fighter, and which you could see when he went into Ultimate Fighter, he could barely even win the Ultimate Fighter. But they were protecting him in ways with matchups that would play to his strengths, and then he fought Seth. I forgot his name, Seth something, and then got crushed. And then that had to do with that made the company fail. Because so they weren't cheating per se, but matchmaking is tricky, and every promotion does this. Every promotion does this. Even from the way back when in the UFC, the very first matchmaking the Gracies did, there's a point to be said that they could have made a different way, but obviously there's always going to be some agenda. Today there's matchmaking, but over time, if you're fighting the top guys there all the time, eventually you're going to fight someone who's going to beat you or going to really challenge you. And that's the UFC has stuck to that consistently more than any other fighting promotion. Okay, Conor McGregor got a lot of easy fights through no fault of his own. There was injuries and things like that, but also they protected him in a little beginning because they wanted to give him some time to grow. That's nothing wrong with that. But eventually, he fought Khabib and got smashed. And he also fought Nate Diaz and got tapped out too. So, there's only goes so far when they're pushing you to fight who you need to fight. And the UFC really does that. If you're not going to fight who you need to fight, we will strip you of your title. And they did that to Ren to me. She's like, I won't fight, I think it was Cyborg. They're like, okay, well, you don't get your title then. Good. That's the way it should be. And they will every promotion protects their fighters at some level at some point. And it's even the UFC, but over time, you have to let them go and fight everyone. And the UFC generally does that. Even in the way back when, like, okay, Royce Gracie is protected because they did the matchmaking this way or this way. Well, but eventually he fought, like, whoever won in that bracket, like after the first bracket, you don't know who's going to fight. And then he fought a few more times too. And then eventually he fought Akebono in Japan and this and that and whatever. Anyway, but it's like, yeah, matchmaking is a difficult subject. But the thing is, it's been real. And pro wrestling went from being real and training to embracing so much of the sideshow. They're like, well, the story will sell more than reality. So what we're going to do is forget the reality and only sell the story. And then it's become a joke. And that can happen into so many fighting arts that you either go in one direction, it just becomes a joke. Really hope MMA does not embrace the razzle dazzle more than technique. And it's, it's important, but I think the old UFC owners, the Zuffa, were very good about selling the product of MMA like basketball. It's an experience, a fight experience. You're not following just one fighter. You're following this experience. And it's going to come once a week or whatever, and it's going to be this sport that is just part of your life, and this is the sport, and we want people to know the techniques, know this and that. And that's why I think the Gracie breakdowns were there. Before the Gracie breakdowns, the UFC used to have these instructional things, like this is how triangle works, this is this, to educate the fans. And I still think even the modern owners who are a little bit more oriented towards money to make back their investment, but they still see it as an investment in the experience. And I think that's why the move to ESPN was very good, where it's like, we've developed this very strong fan base, less casual fans. It's more expensive. Still more educated fans so that we don't have to pander as much. We just sell our experience. And I think that's a good thing. So I think the UFC is pretty sound. It's just I don't think we're ever going to like go in the deep end of drama. It'll always be drama because it's a fight. It has to be show. But it seems like they're still moving in the right direction. One is moving in a great direction where they're like, we don't want you to trash talk. We want you to act like martial artists. We want you to act like really cool, respectable fighters, and we'll take it from there. And I think that's why one is so popular in Asia, because actually a lot of Japanese don't really respond to the like arrogant trash talking that like kind of motivates a casual American fan. It's just a cultural thing. It's like respect is much more part of that culture, and it's definitely part of the martial art culture. And so ONE FC is extraordinarily popular in a lot of the Asian markets because it's more respectful, testing of skill. Yeah,
and maybe that the wariness of the American audience will leave a gap for ONE FC to kind of move over to the West.
Yeah, no, they're definitely growing.
Yeah, and hopefully the UFC will kind of not pander to the the lowest common denominator and actually pay attention to their core fan base. And, you know, people that watch Conor McGregor's going to be gone eventually, and you're going to be left with people that want to see technical fights, but they're not there if you replace them with people that are used to be WWE stars.
And, you know, this is what I always say, as I don't think, and probably our listeners, if, you know, why are you interested in MMA? Well, some guys are martial artists, right? I don't think a lot of people turn into MMA for violence. Because you just go on World Star Hip Hop. What I think we turn into is sports drama.
Right.
And you can have a tremendous amount of drama without disrespect. Like this Stipe fight, or actually I should say the Costa Romero fight. That was pretty dramatic.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was definitely brutal. And there was some good technique on both sides. I wouldn't say that, but it was definitely a night of tremendous brutality. Yeah. And there was a drama. You're like, oh my God, who is this guy? You know, but that can happen even with jiu-jitsu match. It can be very, very dramatic and very, very edge of their seat, exciting, without you know, the McGregor antics.
Yes, I mean they were very friendly towards each other.
Or the Colby Covington antics or whatever.
Oh God, that guy.
Yeah, I know, right?
Did you see him in the stands at the fight?
I did. That was terrible. Yeah.
He's never going to be on our show, but we never want you on our show.
No, thank you. No, thank you.
Hey,
gosh. So we got some more listener questions, and I thought we would do that. And then actually it kind of like segues into a couple things I want to talk about. But we had some questions. So Matt, could you do a little bit of a roulette here and see which question you'd like to choose?
Some good ones. Let's see. Why is karate not commonly used in MMA?
Fantastic question. And okay, so some of you guys know that I started out in karate when I was a kid. I studied under Miyazaki Toyotaro as well as other people in Japan. I trained some karate in Japan as well, right? Started karate in 1975. So I have a karate background, and I also can talk. I don't want to just talk about karate, but let's say some of the more traditional martial arts. And there's arguments, like we have an episode was why, remember the episode we talked about Press Ken, why certain martial arts just don't work. And that is a different subject. Let's take the techniques that absolutely work from karate, 100%. There's some techniques that actually don't work because they are not designed for hand-to-hand. They're designed as weapon versus weapon. And because these are fighting systems, like some of these techniques make a lot more sense when you're, oh, this is a sword technique. It's just we're doing it unarmed right now, but this is actually a sword movement. Or there's a defense to a sword where you do this, right? So they make no sense unarmed. But let's take that away. Let's take that all away. Like a lot of Kung Fu falls into that aspect. If you guys are interested, I think it's like episode, what was it? It was like episode, like one of the early ones.
Oh yeah, it was back in when we recorded at your cabin.
But there's a lot of techniques that are designed for the situation of the battlefield or something like that. I mean, let's say the karate techniques that absolutely 100% are functional in self-defense, that 100% are functional in MMA. Why don't you see it, or why do you see it? And it's not that you don't see it, because there's some karate guys. There's Thompson. There's one that doesn't get a lot of press, but is John Makdessi. He's actually originally a karate guy. Pettis, who just fought, is actually from a traditional Taekwondo background originally. Obviously, he trains in Muay Thai. But I was having this discussion with one of my students, who's also a karate guy, and this is the issue. And Lawrence Kenshin just posted this very much. Lawrence Kenshin is a Muay Thai scholar, and he does a lot of Muay Thai breakdowns of fights. This is why this. And there are some incredibly skilled traditional martial art fighters, right, who are in the ring today. Many, many skilled, right? And there are many who are not. So what's the difference now? But then you look at the average Muay Thai trained fighter and the average karate trained fighter, and the average Muay Thai trained fighter is more prepared for combat. Mm-hmm. Now, that's a hard pill for a lot of karate guys to swallow. It's a hard pill. And I'm saying that I've met a lot of karate guys who are really good. But the average Muay Thai guy versus the average karate guy, the Muay Thai guy is more prepared. And it's not the techniques they're using. It's the training methods. The way Thai boxers and boxers train, the way they teach, the way the teachers teach, and the way the teachers train their students is more efficient. And that is a fact. So I'll give you an example of training with a lot of Japanese instructors. Do this. Shut up and do it 1,000 times, and then I'll talk to you. And there's no like, hey, okay, here, this reaction time drill. This is why I do this, because of this and this.
Sounds
and
like Kill Bill.
Right? No, exactly. It's like that Asian stereotype of like, okay, sit in the on the bamboo post and do your horse dance for 45 minutes. Like that ancient kung fu movie thing.
Punch this wall.
Yeah, punch this wall 1,000 times. Right? And there is a place for that. There is a place, but Japanese teachers are very extraordinarily bad at the Socratic learning method. Okay, meaning, hey, this is why you do this. This is why you do that. This is why you do that. Now, that being said, Thai boxers are not exactly, Thai boxing trainers, anybody who's to Thailand, Thai boxing trainers are not exactly the most loquacious fighters. But what they do is when you're training with a Thai boxer or a boxing guy, they have a conversation with you through movement. So it's like pop, 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 pop. I'm moving these pads and you're moving with me. So we're simulating what's the movement and the reaction, and there's energy drills. And there's Conor McGregor's group, SBG. Conor McGregor belongs to this group, SBG, Straight Blast Gym, and his is Straight Blast Gym Ireland or whatever. But the founder of Straight Blast Gym is based in Seattle, and he's a very, very, very has a lot of videos on this where he talks about like why some martial arts suck. And let's put the bad techniques aside, because of course there's some techniques that are just ridiculously awful and you can find them anywhere. Let's talk about the techniques that work. Why is this fighter not able to apply this work? Because anytime you fight, you're not, the old Miyagi thing, the board don't fight back, like you're not hitting a board. You're hitting a moving target who's legitimately trying not to get hit and trying to hit you back. So there's a lot of, like, for lack of a better word, a lot of energy exchange. Like where you hear, you have to understand the technique in the dynamic moment. And a lot of Japanese karate instructors are not really that good at teaching that. So who figures that out? The top athletes who don't need to be taught. They're just good, really good. They pick up fast. They're natural combat athletes like Yoel Romero. Yoel Romero is a natural combat athlete. No matter where he went, he would be good. Just genetics. It's good. And also some wrestling too, foundation. But he has this natural understanding of the ins and outs of like kicking the shit out of someone. That's just, some people have that. My when I was growing up, my cousin, when I was like young and I was like 7, I'd been to karate for a couple of years. My cousin never trained anything, but he grew up hard. He grew up in the South Bronx. Man, he could handle himself better than me. Right. And as I trained karate, I was like 7 years old. And let me tell you, I was training 5 to 7, but I was not a kiddie class like the karate. Like I was training with adults, and it was real training, but the way they train does not prepare you for the chaos of the moment. And the way they train is just not as efficient to develop fighting skill. It is. It's putting the technique aside. It's how you teach and how you train. And Elio Gracie said this. He's like, my art is not just a technique. It's the way I teach. And that is true because I see the same thing in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu today where like, that is not what I remember. You guys are not doing this right. And there's a lot of sloppiness and there's a lot of this. And so you see karate techniques work in MMA, but you don't see it as much as Muay Thai because most karate guys, and I'm not talking about like your McDojo guys, I'm talking real karate guys who are really interested in finding, they're still not understanding the best ways to teach the technique. And let me tell you, the best ways to teach striking are used by boxing and Muay Thai. You know why? Because money's on the line. Money is on the line. And this is why, look at all the people who went from the traditional arts into and had success in kickboxing. Bill Superfoot Wallace, Benny the Jet Urquidez, Chuck Norris.
Steven Seagal. I'm just kidding. Sorry. Just trying to make him mad.
Yes, that's trolling. You're trolling me, Matt. But all these guys train like kickboxers, which means they train like boxers, right? Pads, movement, where, drills aliveness, meaning you're not punching a bag and the bag does nothing. Although that's power training, that's important. But the movement, the moving in this dynamic energy system between you and your opponent. What does your opponent do? What do I do? What do I do here? What do I do here? What do I do here? Pop, 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 pop. This is what can come at you. Boom, boom, boom. That's what makes you better. And every boxer has understood this since the turn, like 1905. But if you go to any karate school, most of the time, they don't, like they have these kind of one-punch drills that are static and this and that. It's not chaotic. It's not chaotic. The training methods, the teaching methods are not as good for combat.
So it's not the art itself. It's just the way it's taught.
Yes, but Matt, that's true. But Matt, the art and the way the art is taught are sometimes the same.
Right. You can't separate.
You can't separate the two. And you know what else you can't separate? The training equipment. So the art, the equipment you use with the art, and like try to do judo without a gi. Suddenly it's not judo anymore. It's something different. It looks more like Greco-Roman wrestling.
Can't throw somebody with that.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard because the gear you use, boxing without boxing gloves, is now different.
Right.
The gear you use, the way you teach it, and what you do technically, all are this kind of like synergistic interplay. That's not my thought. That, you know who said that? Dan Inosanto, Bruce Lee's number one pupil. He's like, the gear you use is integral to how you're going to do
tools of the trade.
Tools of the trade, right? You know, the way you block with boxing gloves is not the way you're going to block with MMA gloves. You can see that with Stipe. He was getting hurt. He was trying to do this like little like boxing thing and a little bit, and like, oh no, you're getting hit.
Interesting.
So that's how I say that. And
episode 5, by the way, go back and listen to episode 5 with
we did
Professor
a shout
Ken.
out to a few episodes. Yeah, the one with 5 with Professor Ken, and the one we're talking to Romero was like episode like 13 or something, right?
I got that right. It was a while ago.
Yeah, don't worry about that. We'll
12. Episode 12.
I was close.
So we got time for one more question. If we can make it quick.
Sure.
I'll try to pick one that doesn't
I don't think
sound
I can make
too
it quick.
complicated. Why is Bruce Lee considered such a great fighter, even though he had no professional fights? Now, here's a question: is he considered a great fighter? I think he's considered a great martial artist.
Right. Okay. Exactly.
Did I spoil your answer?
No, Matt, you're so freaking smart sometimes. You know, like everybody says, oh, Matt's like the entertainment part of this movie. No, guys, Matt, that was a perfect answer.
He wrote that down and passed it over to me.
I did not. No, you got to define your terms. So first of all, there's a whole lot of Bruce Lee nut huggers, right? Okay, so you know, like their life is, and this is what we talked about in the couple episodes ago, where like, okay, your an association to your guru is so important to you that there's nothing more important. Like you have to hero worship your guru, like, oh, it's the next coming of Jesus, right? Okay. So there's that, right? And Bruce Lee has that. So does, you know, every Gracie, and so does like, you know, Bill, you know, Benny Jett, and you know, sometimes you just have these nut huggers that just whatever. They have no real life, and they have no achievement in their life. So they just their definition is like, I'm a Bruce Lee fan for whatever reason. Okay, let's put that aside. So, but was Bruce Lee a very dedicated martial artist? Absolutely, no question. Was Bruce Lee a forward thinker who was already seeing that cross training was essential? No question. Did Bruce Lee have some theories about fighting that were, I wouldn't say revolutionary, but cutting edge for his time? Yeah. Could Bruce Lee really fight? I never saw Bruce Lee fight. But I've seen a lot of Bruce Lee kicking the bag. And I've seen eyewitness accounts. We talked about it in that episode where it's Showdown in Oakland. There's a book, Showdown in Oakland, where he fights that one challenge match against another Kung Fu guy. And basically, by Bruce Lee's own account, not anyone else's, he did not perform well in that fight, and his techniques did not perform well, which is why he kind of like became a forward thinker, because he was like, yeah, I kind of suck, right? This is not how it's supposed to work. And that is absolutely true. Now, after that, did he refine and test himself? I don't know. But when I see him kicking his bag in the Bruce Lee days, it was okay. It wasn't bad. It was pretty good. You know, if he went into Thailand and fought Muay Thai right then in the 60s, it would be a tough day for him. He was not the elite level guys of that era were really freaking great in striking. I would say Muay Thai. If you went into the Asian, you know, what they used to call Oriental rules, which is like kickboxing with low kicks in Japan, like they did all these different rules. Went into the elite level in the 60s and 70s, it would be a tough day for him. I'm not saying he's not a great martial artist, good martial artist. You can define martial arts in a lot of ways. But okay, some people define fighter different ways. Is a fighter a guy who gets into street fights? Because there's supposedly Bruce Lee had some street fights. You know, if we define fighter as a person who gets into a street fight once in a while, that's like what? Like 80% of the male population? You know,
I'm a fighter over
yeah,
here.
yeah. Like, okay, I got into a fight when I was 6 years old in the lunchroom with, you know, Billy, who stole my, you know, peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So
I'm
fighting.
3-0 in the cafeteria.
Yeah, exactly. I'm 3-0 in the octagon of PS 97. Yeah, like, you know, like that's how are we defining fighter?
Right.
Okay, are you defining fighter as a person who engaged at some point in a street fight in his life? That seems ridiculous to me. If that's your definition, then yes, then everybody in the world is probably at some level of fighter. You know, or you could define a fighter in the more nebulous terms, like Brene Brown or some of these liberal theorists. Like, I'm a fighter against racism. I'm a fighter. No, that's great. No, you could be a fighter. You know, Martin Luther King's a fighter. Okay, great. Okay. Well, how are we going to define this term? We could define it anyway. If you are not in the ring fighting, to me, you're not a professional or amateur fighter. Okay, if you're training martial arts seriously, you are a dedicated martial artist. Great. If you're a street fighter and you've had you could say you're a street fighter. So I define those terms differently. Was Bruce Lee a ring fighter? No, he has never gone in the ring. If he did, at that time, the best ring fighters would have eaten him alive. And that is a fact. That doesn't mean he's not good. That doesn't mean, if I went into I am a martial artist. If I went in and fought Demetrius Johnson today, I would get annihilated. Or God, I don't want to say it. Conor McGregor. I don't even want to say that. That's just awful. But if I fought Khabib Nurmagomedov, if I fought him right now, I would get molested. That doesn't negate my martial art training. Am I a fighter? No. I was in the ring at one point in my life. I was a fighter. I stepped in the ring in a pro-am circuit and was a fighter, right? I am no longer. I am a retired fighter, and I am a martial artist now. So saying Bruce Lee was a fighter is not true if you define a fighter that way. It depends how you define your terms. Was Bruce Lee a revolutionary thinker? Yes. Did he have a lot of flaws in what he was doing? Because of where he came from, he had a lot of flaws. His kung fu, by his own admission, was flawed. And he was seeking through cross-training to overcome that. And he withdrew from a lot of boxing, a lot of savate. And people say that if it was the modern world, he would be, doing MMA. And I probably think he would. And, he was the first striker that I'm aware of who openly, mixed striking with grappling. And you could see that in Enter the Dragon, the first scene, he's in that fight, and he does striking, and then he takes the guy down and does some stuff on the ground. And that's great. And nobody did that before, like mixing up high-level grappling and high-level striking, in a context. And you never saw it again. Like, you don't see like guys doing, you didn't see guys doing like intricate ground fighting in movies or anything. For a while, and people really looked down on ground fighting. Bruce Lee never did. He was trained by Judo Jean LaBelle, and he had a lot of respect for grappling. He had to earn it because the story goes, Judo Jean LaBelle picked him up and kind of like made him understand the grappling. Yeah, and then the new Tarantino movie makes Bruce Lee look really bad.
I heard that they weren't happy about it.
Yeah. So that makes him look arrogant, and while it's not historically accurate in terms of time. He loses I don't want to spoil it. I haven't seen it yet, but he loses a street fight against the main characters, I think Brad Pitt or something, right? But that is like based on, it's a stuntman. It's based on the story of Juno Jean LaBelle, who doesn't really say he beat him, but they were on the set of Green Lantern, and they had this kind of like exchange of technique, and Judo picked him up in a katagurum, which is a fireman's carry, and held him on his head. And, of course, Jean LaBelle is like twice the size of Bruce Lee, but he put him in a fireman's carry and picked him up and said, I'm going to put you down if you say you're not going to hit me, and I will not put you down. Bruce Lee's like, put me the fuck down. He got really pissed. This is a true story. He got really, really pissed. And he's like, put me the fuck down. And because he's like making him look bad, as well as, like his technique was obviously flawed. And from that day on though, Bruce Lee was a smart guy. He's like, can you teach me judo? And your style of judo, which was like a combination of catch wrestling and judo, and Judo Jean LaBelle is a great master and had nothing but great things to say about Bruce Lee. But, he that is that thing in that Tarantino movie is based off of loosely the Jean LaBelle encounter. I believe, because obviously he's a stunt man and he loses, but they take it into another direction and it's historically completely inaccurate. And also they make Bruce Lee look really arrogant and like an asshole, which I don't know. He had his cocky side for sure, but in that interaction between him and Jean LaBelle has never said that Bruce Lee was an asshole or cocky to him. It's just they had an exchange of technique, and then he got pissed because Jean LaBelle wouldn't let him down.
I'd be pissed too.
Yeah, exactly. Somebody picks you up and
put me down.
He's like, yeah, I'll put you down if you say you're not going to hit me, and then he had to agree. And he's like, okay. And then, but there's just a lot of these like, okay, can you teach me? And he became Jean LaBelle's student. So depends how we define terms. And I think the use of terms, and I'll tell you something, this is a guy I knew, and he's like, I met him, this is going back 20 years, this is 20 years ago. I met him, and the first thing he says to me is like, he's a kung fu guy. And he's like, yeah, I'm a fighter. I'm a fighter like you, Rene. I'm a fighter. I'm like, I'm not a fighter. I have not fought in the ring. I'm not a fighter. And he's like, I'm a fighter, man. I'm like, when do you fight in the ring? He's like, no, I'm just a fighter. I'm like,
fighter spirit.
Yeah, fighter spirit. Well, I'm like, well, how are we defining terms? And also, like, he's like one of the worst combat athletes I have ever met in my life. Like, his need to say he was a fighter was, again, from that feeling the insecurity and internal lack of self-esteem. So his like outward, persona was, kind of a dick. And the funny thing was, an MMA guy. It wasn't an MMA guy. It was not. It was a traditional kung fu guy. So, and I've seen that in Aikido too. There's very traditional kung fu guys that, yeah, we're fighters. I'm like, you're martial artists. You're not ring fighters. Or you could say you're a street fighter. When's the last time you got in a street fight?
Right now. Bow.
Yeah, right. Like, those guys, they're not even doing street fighting.
Yeah.
When the minute you're in a street fight, you realize you never want to do another street fight unless you're a psychopath.
The answer to this question is D. We need more information. You got to define your terms.
Yeah, you got to define your
terms. Let us know what kind of fight are you talking about?
Ring,
fill in
street,
the blanks.
Martial artist. That's it.
One
of those three.
We'll answer the question there. Well, we've reached the end of our time. Thanks for taking this journey with us through UFC 241 and beyond. And we got some good stuff coming up. A lot of cool things happening in the world of martial arts.
We got about a month to the Poirier-Khabib fight, right? When's the next one? When is it?
I don't know.
Hold on. I'm going to events. Here we go. Okay. We have Andrade versus Zhang, the female fight. Jessica Andrade versus the Chinese fighter. That's coming up August 31st. That's a pretty good one. And then September 7th. So we're a few weeks away from Khabib versus Poirier. That's
I really don't see Poirier.
No way. Yeah, we're 2.5 weeks away. Yeah. Oh my God, I can't wait. So there's the Andrade Zhang, which Andrade is gonna probably destroy her. But that they're like kind of two versions of each other, two Sherman tanks just going at it, or a Panzer and a Sherman tank fighting. Very interesting fight. But yeah, I cannot wait. Who do you got? Khabib or Poirier?
Khabib,
of course.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
We can't make bets anymore because we always agree.
Not always.
No.
Yeah, but we did agree on Stipe.
We did.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for listening. Please share and subscribe and rate and tell your friends.
Yes, wonderful. And we have some big things coming up for our podcast soon, which we will not at liberty to say, but we will say in the next probably month or so, right? And the podcast is getting bigger and bigger. And thank you to all our listeners out there. We know we've been growing tremendously. We really appreciate your support, and wonderful to have you guys on board with us.
Yeah. If you have any more questions, please send them in.
Yes.
We love questions.
CoachDreyfus@gmail.com, or just go to RadicalMMANYC.com and you can just contact me through there.
Beautiful.
Or Facebook, Martial Culture Podcast Facebook page, or Instagram.
What's our Instagram? Martial Culture Cast, I think.
Martial Culture Cast. Yeah, that's you.
Cool. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening. Follow us on Twitter @Martial_Culture and on Instagram @MartialCultureCast. Please leave a review on iTunes, and we'll see you next time on the Martial Culture Podcast.